You are listening to the Thinking Effect podcast with Ortal Green and Lillian Kriegler. Everything starts with a thought. Join the quest to reshape your own and your students' thinking by exploring your usual curriculum in new and exciting ways. In each episode, we share dynamic and practical ways you can ignite thinking in your classroom. Welcome everyone to episode 6 of the Thinking Effect podcast with Lillian Kriegler and my friend Ortal Green. And today we are asking the question, how can we help students see the forest and the trees? Hi Ortal, how are you today?
I'm wonderful, thank you. How are you, Lillian?
Excellent, thanks.
You know, we often hear people say about other people, maybe about themselves as well, I can't see the forest from the trees, which tells us that many of us find it difficult to see the small details and also the big picture. So I think it's important to have a chat about it and see how we can help children identify and understand the small details, but also not forget about seeing the big picture.
That's right. I don't know, many of our teachers will have seen a cartoon of an elephant and several blindfolded people touching a different part of the elephant. So like the person touching the ear is thinking it's a fan, and the person touching the tusks is thinking, oh, this is a spear. And, the legs are like a tree trunk and the tail is like a rope. And none of them knows what they're really dealing with because they're only seeing a tiny detail and not the big picture. So it's very difficult to get a genuine sense of what you're dealing with.
Yeah, I love this story about the elephant. I love this metaphor because it's explain and paint a wonderful picture on what it is. And yes, I agree. Often we learn a small piece of information, and if we keep it in isolation, just looking at that small piece of information, that's fine. We gain something out of it, but we miss so much because we don't understand how this piece of information is related to other things, how it is a part of a bigger picture. And as we know, everything is interlinked. So it's important to understand the relationship between different things and being able to see the big picture of how things interact with their environment.
That's right. And I love, you described this recently as it's a piece of information floating in space without any connection. It's kind of episodic. You're seeing one episode of, a Netflix thing and you just don't know what is going on. So it's true. We have to know how things connect up.
Yes, definitely. It's very important for our understanding about the world, our environment, and how everything is interlinked and how it impacts us, how everything impacts our lives as well. And I think that, as you said, we need to be able to see one thing's as it relates to other. And that actually, the way to do it is by being able to zoom in and zoom out. So we zooming in when we want to look at something from up close, which we need to do sometimes. We really need to explore something. Let's say we're exploring a leaf. So we need to really zoom in and explore the leaf veins and the color and the shapes and why is it in a particular color. But then we need to start zooming out and see how that leaf relates to the environment, for other things in the environment. Let's say that leaf is part of a tree. So what's the relationship between the leaf and the tree? How does the leaf support the tree? How does the tree support the leaf, etc.?
That's correct. I mean, very often, in the classroom, in a nature study, you will hear that leaves have shapes. There's a pinnate one and an ovate one and a reniform leaf or whatever they are. But that's very static information and it doesn't tell us a lot. And, sometimes children get tested on that. But I mean, is that shape really important, or is it more important to look at the veins and to think about what are these veins doing? What is the function And then to start to trace how that leaf is connected with this little stem, and how the parts of the tree go thicker and thicker from little twigs to branches to the trunk down into the roots, and then how the tree is surviving, how it's connected with water and air and sunlight. So yeah, sure, understand what the shapes of leaves are, but then the much more important information for students is to know how these things are connected. And I love what you said about, and maybe you'll elaborate a little bit about making this learning more personal for the students, So I think the question you asked, and you might comment on that, is what does a tree mean to you?
Exactly. Yeah, it's important. I think once we help students see how it relates to them, how it is part of their life and impacts them, it helps make the learning much more richer, and actually help them develop, a higher level of thinking, because then they'll understand that how everything is interlinked, and they'll start to think actually how my action, how what I'm doing is impacting other people or other things in the environment. And if we continue with the example of the tree, so we can share with the student that a tree, for example, creates oxygen, and we all need oxygen to breathe. Without trees, we won't have the oxygen we need to live. We won't be able to live. And so we can elaborate and see how the tree actually supports so many different lives, because there are many insects living and need the tree, or birds or other animals. So that tiny leaf that we started with helped the tree grow, and that tree helped so many other animals live, and human beings as well. And it provides shelter and food and material to build houses from. So that single tree provides so much life on its own. And if we zoom out even further, then we can see a forest. And then we can start look at, okay, how does the forest impact its environment, and what is the ecosystem within that forest?
This is right. And, once the children start to see this very personal connection, and as you say, they zoom out and see that everything we do is impacting on the ecosystem, that they're part of it, they can select how they want to get involved. And, they might speak with other people about looking after the environment, and they get a mission and an understanding of themselves as actors in the environment. So, as from that example of maybe we're going to learn the shapes of leaves, which stays in the classroom, and, it might be forgotten. So when you're 14 or when you're 25, you never remember that. But you will never forget that connection you had with the tree. And recently in a school where I was working, there's rebuilding happening, and they were going to have to cut down a tree. And the children were really quite distressed about it, and not because, they loved the tree for itself, but this tree had also become a meeting place. It was called the buddy tree. So they had these very external or zoom out connections with the tree. And because the educators were photographing and trying to document and work with the children to understand these changes and transformations, they heard this almost for the first time after the children had been using it as a buddy tree for years. And so rather than just let it go, now when this tree is taken down, the builders have said they will, cure the wood, and they're going to build a bench, and this will be called the bench from the buddy tree, so that this tree will have a legacy. But if you hadn't listened to the connections, and if they hadn't thought to track the transformation and to realize what that personal connection is, it would never have happened. So zooming in and zooming out is a crucial thing, because it helps to establish the connections between things. And I love looking at detail. Believe me, I love taking a leaf and analyzing it in absolute detail and finding out what are all the criteria, shape, size, color, what's going to happen to it in autumn, will it change color, won't it? And that tells us a lot of information, but then connecting, zooming out, connect. You can see how the concentric circles of knowledge expand. So I just love it, and a lot of the time we can even zoom in further than we thought. So we're talking like a telescope, but if you take a microscope or a macro camera and you go really, into the leaf and find out there's smaller details that even the naked eye can't see, children love it. They love it. It's very, very exciting to find out, so there you're bringing the digital knowledge that we have in the 21st century and applying it and using it in the classroom just makes zooming in and zooming out a very exciting thing to do.
Definitely. And it's something that I think that children will enjoy doing in the classroom. Well, firstly, I love the story, by the way, Lydiane. It's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it. But yeah, it's a beautiful story. But for teachers, if you really want to show students the full blown of zoom in and zoom out. So Lydiane, like you said, you can start with a microscope. So a really close up photo of a leaf, which you can't really see that it's a leaf, and ask children, what is it? What do you think it is? Let them guess. And then you build up, you kind of zoom out slowly until you see it's a leaf. And then you continue to zoom out and you see a tree, and then you see a forest, and then you see more parts of planet Earth. And then you see planet Earth from outer space. And then maybe planet Earth will disappear because the universe is so big and wide. So you can really demonstrate children the power of zooming in and zooming out by doing this exercise in the classroom.
Yes, I mean, there's actually a beautiful book, and I wish I could remember the author, but the book is called Zoom, and I'm sure teachers will find it. But so to quickly summarize the what of trying to help students, I'm trying to find the name of it, how can we help students see the forest and the trees, is about giving them the big picture and the small picture at the same time so that they can establish the connections between things. The why is that if we give them isolated pieces of information that are floating around like something in space, they probably won't remember it, they probably won't connect it, and it won't be personal to them. And the how is to give children this understanding and give them the opportunities to do that zooming in and zooming out. And I think the examples we shared with you will give you a real sense of how is a leaf connected to a forest, and how is a tree connected to emotion. It just, it will give you those messages. Absolutely.
And we do have something special for teachers today, aren't we?
Yes, correct. This, my book, Edu-Chameleon, we want people to write to us. So we are sharing our book. So write your experience about zooming in and zooming out. And Ortal, what is our...
please write to us. Our email address is thethinkingeffectpodcast@gmail.com, and I'll add it to the description of the episode so you can have it there.
Correct. So one lucky person will receive Edu-Chameleon, just as in the last episode, you've got Ortal's lovely book, which is...
Think Unique.
Think Unique. So until next time, go out and transform the world, which is what teachers do.
Yes, and don't forget to join us to the next episode number 7, which will be how can you help children understand different perspectives?
Great topic. All right, goodbye.
Bye.